Preface: When thunder hides the truth. For centuries, Zeus has stood at the pinnacle of Greek mythology, enthroned above Mount Olympus as the undisputed king of the gods. His name is synonymous with thunder, authority, and divine judgment. To mortals and immortals alike, Zeus appears as the ultimate embodiment of power, the hand that strikes, the voice that commands, the force that maintains order in a chaotic cosmos. Yet behind the roar of lightning and the brilliance of his throne, a quieter question lingers, rarely spoken aloud. Was Zeus truly the strongest, or merely the last one standing? The rise of Zeus was not a tale of peaceful succession, but of rebellion, betrayal, and cosmic warfare. He overthrew his own father, shattered the age of the Titans, and reshaped the universe through conquest rather than inheritance. Victory, however, does not always equate to supremacy. History, both mortal and divine, has shown that the survivor of a great conflict is not necessarily the most powerful, only the most adaptable, the most ruthless, or the most prepared. Ancient whispers tell of beings who once rivaled, or even surpassed Zeus, primordial forces older than the gods, embodiments of night, fate, and chaos itself. Some were sealed away, some withdrew from the world, and others vanished into myth, leaving Zeus alone beneath the sky he claimed as his dominion. Whether by strength, cunning, or fear of what might challenge him, Zeus endured. This exploration does not seek to dethrone the king of Olympus, but to peer behind the thunderclouds, to ask whether absolute power is forged through unmatched strength or through the silent elimination of all who could rival it. Part 1. Zeus, a victor by circumstance or by strength. Zeus is often remembered as the unquestioned ruler of Olympus, the god whose thunderbolts enforced divine law and whose will shaped the order of the cosmos. Yet his ascent to power was neither inevitable nor uncontested. To understand whether Zeus was truly supreme by virtue of raw strength, or whether he emerged victorious because history bent in his favor, one must return to the chaotic age before Olympus, an era ruled not by gods of law and civilization, but by titans of brute force and primordial instinct. Born into fear and prophecy, Zeus's story begins not with power, but with vulnerability. His father, Cronus, ruler of the Titans, was haunted by a prophecy foretelling his downfall at the hands of one of his own children. In response, Cronus devoured each newborn offspring, believing that absolute control required absolute prevention. Zeus survived not because he was stronger than his siblings, but because of deception. Rhea's cunning, hiding Zeus away and feeding Cronus a stone instead, was the first decisive factor in Zeus's eventual rise. From the outset, his survival depended on timing, secrecy, and the actions of others. This detail is often overlooked, yet it is crucial. Zeus did not overcome fate by force alone. He avoided it through circumstance. Had Cronus hesitated less, had Rhea failed in her deception, the thunder god would never have drawn breath. Power, in Zeus's case, began not with dominance, but with escape. The Titanomachy, war beyond individual strength. When Zeus returned to challenge Cronus, he did not do so alone. The Titanomachy, the 10-year war between the Olympians and the Titans, was not a duel of champions, but a prolonged, catastrophic conflict that reshaped the universe. Zeus's eventual victory was the result of coalition building as much as combat prowess. He freed his swallowed siblings, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia, not only restoring balance, but creating a unified front. More importantly, Zeus released the Cyclopes and the Cendamanes from Tartarus, being so powerful and violent that even the Titans had feared them. In return, the Cyclopes forged Zeus's thunderbolts, Poseidon's trident, and Hades' helm of invisibility, artifacts that would forever tilt the balance of power. This raises an uncomfortable question. Was Zeus stronger than the Titans, or simply better armed? The thunderbolt was not merely a weapon. It was a symbol of technological superiority in a mythic sense, a force multiplier that transformed Zeus from a god among many into a walking catastrophe. Without it, Zeus would have faced titans who embodied mountains, oceans, and time itself. In many interpretations, Zeus's greatest strength during the Titanomachy was not physical might, but strategic vision. He recognized that raw power alone would not defeat the Titans. Innovation and alliance would. This does not diminish his victory, but it reframes it. Zeus did not win because he was inherently unstoppable. He won because he changed the rules of divine warfare. Cronus, a fallen king, not a weaker one. Cronus is often portrayed as a tyrant whose defeat was inevitable, yet myth paints a more complex picture. As a titan, Cronus had already overthrown his own father, Uranus, severing the sky from the earth. He ruled during a golden age, a time when humanity lived without suffering or labor. His fall was not the result of incompetence, but stagnation. Cronus relied on fear and preservation. Zeus, by contrast, embraced transformation and risk. The difference between them was not necessarily strength, but adaptability. Cronus tried to freeze time, Zeus weaponized it. In some lesser-known traditions, Cronus fought Zeus directly and held his own until the thunderbolts were unleashed. This suggests that Zeus's dominance was not absolute in a physical sense. The son surpassed the father not by sheer might, but by combining strength with foresight, allies, and new forms of power. Victory through delegation and division. Another key element of Zeus's rise lies in what followed the Titanomachy. After the Titans were defeated and cast into Tartarus, Zeus did not claim sole dominion over the cosmos. Instead, he divided power among his brothers. Poseidon ruled the seas, Hades the underworld, while Zeus himself claimed the sky. This division was not an act of humility, it was an act of control. By distributing authority, Zeus reduced the likelihood of unified rebellion. Each realm became dependent on Zeus's overarching rule, yet isolated from the others. In this sense, Zeus ruled not as an all-consuming force, but as a central axis around which other powers revolved. If Zeus had truly been invincible, he would not have needed to share power at all. The fact that he did suggests an awareness of limits, an understanding that domination requires balance as much as strength. The role of fate and timing. Greek mythology repeatedly emphasizes the role of fate, even among the gods. Zeus himself was not entirely free from it. His rise occurred at a moment when the Titan order had grown rigid, when rebellion was already simmering beneath the surface. Prometheus, Métis, and other figures foresaw the fall of the Titans long before Zeus struck. In this light, Zeus appears not only as a conqueror, but as the instrument of an inevitable transition. He was the right god at the right time, young, adaptable, willing to break old rules. Whether another god could have filled that role is impossible to know, but Zeus was the one who did. Strength redefined. So, was Zeus a victor by circumstance or by strength? The answer lies somewhere between. Zeus was undeniably powerful, but his supremacy was not forged in isolation. It was shaped by prophecy, deception, alliances, innovation, and timing. His strength was not merely the ability to overpower others, but the capacity to survive, learn, and restructure the universe after victory. In the end, Zeus did not rise because he was the strongest being to ever exist. He rose because he understood that power is not a single force, it is a system. And Zeus mastered that system before anyone else. In doing so, he became something greater than a warrior god. He became the architect of a new cosmic order, one built not solely on raw strength, but on calculated dominance. A king not just of thunder, but of outcomes. Part 2. Those who could surpass Zeus, yet vanished from the world. If Zeus's rule appears absolute, it is only because history remembers the survivors. Power, in Greek mythology, is not a fixed hierarchy but a shifting landscape shaped by disappearance as much as dominance. Long before Zeus's thunder defined the sky, and long after his reign was secured, there existed beings whose power rivaled, or exceeded, his own. They were not defeated in conventional battle, nor crowned as rulers of Olympus. Instead, they were erased, withdrawn, bound, or forgotten. To understand Zeus's supremacy, one must examine not only those he overcame, but those who could have overcome him, and yet no longer stand in his shadow. 1. The primordial powers, strength beyond kingship. Before Zeus, before the Titans, even before time was measured, there were the primordials, entities that did not rule the universe, but were the universe. Chaos, Gaia, Tartarus, Nyx, Erebus. These beings did not wield power, they embodied it. Nyx, the night Zeus would not challenge. Among them, Nyx, the personification of night, occupies a singular place. Unlike Titans or Olympians, Nyx does not participate in wars for dominion. Yet ancient sources hint at something extraordinary. Zeus feared her. In one telling, Zeus pursues Hypnos for defying him, only to retreat when Hypnos flees to Nyx. The king of gods halts, unwilling to provoke her wrath. This moment is brief, almost casual, but its implication is seismic. Zeus, who overthrew Cronus and shattered the Titans, chose restraint. Nyx's power was not the explosive force of thunder, but an all-encompassing inevitability. Night falls regardless of kingship. Darkness does not conquer, it arrives. Zeus could rule the sky, but he could not banish night itself. Why, then, did Nyx never rule? Because she did not need to. Her absence from power struggles was not weakness, but indifference. In fictionalized apocrypha, Nyx is described as knowing that all reigns end in darkness eventually. Zeus's fear was not of defeat, but of irrelevance. 2. Typhon, the enemy Zeus could not truly destroy. If Nyx represents passive supremacy, Typhon represents raw, apocalyptic force. Born of Gaia and Tartarus as vengeance against the Olympians, Typhon was not a challenger for kingship. He was an extinction event. Described as a towering storm beast whose 100 heads spat fire, venom, and prophecy, Typhon shook the foundations of the cosmos. In many accounts, Zeus was defeated in their first confrontation. His tendons were ripped from his body, his thunderbolts stolen, and the king of gods was left helpless. This is not metaphor. It is a rare admission of Zeus's vulnerability. Only through trickery, assistance from Hermes and Pan, and the eventual reclaiming of his weapons did Zeus prevail. Even then, Typhon was not killed. He was buried, crushed beneath Mount Etna, his rage transformed into earthquakes and volcanic fire. This distinction matters. Typhon still exists. His defeat was not proof of Zeus's superiority, but of Zeus's desperation. The Olympian order could not endure Typhon's existence. He was not integrated, not negotiated with, not ruled. He was sealed away, excluded from reality itself. In some speculative traditions, Typhon is described as the future, the embodiment of chaos that returns when order decays. If so, Zeus's victory was temporary by nature. Typhon did not lose because he was weaker. He lost because the world was not ready for him. 3. The Moirai, power Zeus could not command. Above gods and monsters alike stood the Moirai, the Fates. Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos did not wield lightning or armies. They wielded inevitability. Even Zeus, king of gods, was subject to fate. While later myths attempt to portray Zeus as influencing or negotiating with the Fates, earlier traditions are more uncompromising. The Moirai predate Olympus. They determine lifespan, downfall, and legacy, not only for mortals, but for gods. Zeus could delay destiny. He could bargain, but he could not undo what was cut. This creates a paradox. How can Zeus be supreme in a universe where his end is already written? The answer may be why the Moirai never ruled. Rule requires presence, intervention, and decision. Fate requires none. The Moirai were not kings because kings act. Fate simply is. In fictionalized lore, it is said Zeus once sought to overthrow the Fates, only to realize that doing so would unravel existence itself. Thus, he redefined supremacy, not as control over all power, but as control over all visible power. What cannot be ruled must be obscured. 4. Prometheus, the god who knew too much. Prometheus is often remembered as a trickster, a benefactor of humanity punished for defying Zeus. But this narrative diminishes his true threat. Prometheus was a titan, but not like the others. He possessed foresight. He knew the future, including a prophecy that Zeus himself would be overthrown by his own son. This knowledge alone made Prometheus dangerous. Zeus did not kill Prometheus. He contained him. Bound to a rock, his liver devoured daily, Prometheus was kept alive, forced to suffer, but never silenced completely. Why? Because Prometheus knew something Zeus needed. Eventually, Zeus freed him, after learning how to avoid his own downfall. The prophecy was neutralized, not through strength, but through information control. Prometheus represents a different kind of power, epistemic power. Knowledge of the future undermines all authority. Zeus's response was not to destroy knowledge, but to monopolize it. In this sense, Prometheus did not vanish. He was absorbed. 5. Métis, the wisdom Zeus consumed. Perhaps the most haunting example of disappearance is Métis, the goddess of wisdom and cunning. She was not defeated. She was swallowed. Zeus learned of a prophecy. Métis would bear 2 children, one daughter of great wisdom and one son greater than his father. Faced with the same threat that doomed Cronus, Zeus acted differently. He consumed Métis while she was pregnant. This act is often framed as cleverness, but it is deeply revealing. Zeus did not trust his strength to face the future. He chose prevention through absorption. Métis did not die. She became part of Zeus, her voice whispering counsel, her wisdom guiding his rule. Athena, born from Zeus's head, was the manifestation of this union. Here, Zeus surpassed Cronus not by avoiding cruelty, but by refining it. He did not destroy the threat, he internalized it. Métis vanished from the world as an independent power, but her influence became inseparable from Zeus's authority. 6. Oceanus, Atlas, and the Titans who endured. Not all Titans were annihilated. Oceanus remained unchained. Atlas was punished, yet essential, holding up the sky itself. These figures represent a quieter truth. Some powers were too foundational to eliminate. Zeus did not destroy them because he could not. Instead, he assigned them roles that remove their agency while preserving their function. Atlas bears the sky, but does not rule it. Oceanus encircles the world, but does not command it. This pattern repeats. Powers that could rival Zeus are not killed. They are redefined. 7. The gods who withdrew. Finally, there are those who simply left. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, relinquished her Olympian throne. She did not fall. She chose peace over power. In speculative myth, it is said that others followed, minor deities who recognized that Olympus was not the pinnacle of existence, but a political center. True power, they believed, lay in distance from rule. Their absence strengthens Zeus's throne, not because he defeated them, but because they refused to play the game he mastered. Conclusion: supremacy through absence. So why did these beings vanish? Not because Zeus was always stronger, not because they were weaker, but because the world Zeus built had no place for their kind of power. Zeus did not become supreme by defeating every rival. He became supreme by outlasting, absorbing, sealing, or outgrowing them. His strength lay not in annihilation, but in curation, deciding which powers would remain visible and which would fade into myth. The gods who could surpass Zeus still exist in echoes, in nightfall, in earthquakes, in destiny, in wisdom, in the inevitability of endings. Zeus reigns not because no one is stronger, but because no one else is allowed to remain. And that, perhaps, is the most formidable power of all. Part 3. Zeus, the absolute power of the one who remains. Power is often imagined as force, the ability to strike harder, to dominate openly, to overwhelm all opposition. Yet history, divine or mortal, suggests a more unsettling truth. The most absolute power rarely belongs to the strongest, the wisest, or even the most feared. It belongs to the one who remains. Zeus, king of Olympus, is not merely the god who won. He is the god who endured, after rebellion, after prophecy, after rivals stronger, older, or more fundamental than himself had vanished from the world. To understand Zeus's absolute power, one must look not at his battles alone, but at the system he left behind when all battles were over. 1. From victor to constant. After the Titanomachy and the defeat of Typhon, Zeus's greatest challenge was no longer conquest, it was permanence. Many gods had ruled before him. Uranus ruled the sky. Cronus ruled time and harvest. Each fell because their power was static, rooted in domination rather than continuity. Zeus learned from their failures. Instead of ruling as a tyrant or an embodiment of a single force, Zeus transformed himself into a constant. He became not merely a god within the cosmos, but the guarantor of the cosmos itself. Storms, oaths, hospitality, law, kingship, justice. Zeus did not specialize. He integrated. This breadth was not accidental. A god of one domain can be replaced. A god who binds all domains together cannot. By positioning himself as the axis of divine order, Zeus ensured that removing him would unravel everything at once. Rebellion against Zeus was no longer rebellion against a king. It was rebellion against reality as it was structured. 2. Law over chaos, redefining strength. Zeus's thunderbolts are often mistaken for symbols of brute force. In truth, they are instruments of judgment. Zeus rarely uses them indiscriminately. He strikes oath breakers, tyrants, cosmic threats, those who destabilize order. This distinction marks a turning point in divine power. Before Zeus, strength was chaotic. Uranus imprisoned his children. Cronus devoured his heirs. Power was fear-based and reactionary. Zeus replaced this with law, not morality in a human sense, but predictability. Actions had consequences. Rules applied even to gods. Importantly, Zeus subjected himself to these rules publicly, even if privately he bent them. This appearance of restraint mattered more than absolute fairness. It established legitimacy. In fictionalized interpretations, the thunderbolt is described not as Zeus's weapon, but as the signature of the law itself. When Zeus strikes, the universe agrees. This is absolute power, not the ability to act freely, but the authority that makes action unquestionable. 3. The management of threats, not their erasure. A defining trait of Zeus's reign is his refusal to annihilate most threats. Titans are imprisoned, not erased. Typhon is buried, not killed. Prometheus is punished, then released. Metis is consumed, not destroyed. This pattern reveals a deeper philosophy. Destruction creates absence, and absence creates instability. Zeus understood that power vacuums invite chaos. Instead of eliminating rival forces, he neutralized them by redefining their roles. Chaos was pushed underground. Wisdom was internalized. Fate was acknowledged but kept distant. Strength was fragmented and delegated. In doing so, Zeus transformed enemies into structural elements of his reign. Even his greatest threats became pillars holding up the world he ruled. This is the strength of the survivor, not dominance through extermination, but dominance through containment. 4. Fear is a tool, not a crutch. Zeus is feared, but fear alone does not sustain empires. Cronus ruled through terror and paranoia. Zeus ruled through selective fear. He allowed disobedience, dissent, even mockery, as long as the structure remained intact. The Olympian gods argue, betray, and scheme, but never unite against Zeus. Why? Because Zeus does not respond to every challenge with force. He waits. He remembers. And when he acts, it is decisive. This cultivated uncertainty is more effective than constant violence. No god knows exactly where Zeus's tolerance ends, and that ambiguity keeps them cautious. Absolute power is not loud. It is patient. 5. Zeus and the illusion of weakness. Zeus is often portrayed as flawed, impulsive, indulgent, unfaithful. These traits are sometimes interpreted as weakness. In reality, they serve a strategic function. By appearing fallible, Zeus humanizes himself to gods and mortals alike. He becomes relatable, predictable, even mockable. This diffuses resentment. A perfect ruler invites rebellion. An imperfect one invites accommodation. Behind this facade, Zeus remains untouched. His authority is never meaningfully challenged. His mistakes never cost him his throne. In some speculative traditions, Zeus is fully aware of this contradiction, that appearing weak makes him unassailable. While others chase purity, Zeus embraces complexity. This, too, is survival. 6. Control of narrative and memory. Power does not exist solely in action. It exists in memory. Zeus ensured that history remembered him as rightful. The Titanomachy is framed as liberation, not conquest. The Titans are remembered as tyrants. Zeus becomes the restorer of balance. This narrative dominance is critical. Even gods who predate Zeus are recontextualized as relics of a broken age. By controlling how the past is remembered, Zeus controls how the future understands legitimacy. In mythic time, memory is reality. Those who could surpass Zeus fade not because they were destroyed, but because they were no longer spoken of as contenders. 7. The final triumph, making himself necessary. The ultimate expression of Zeus's absolute power is necessity. The cosmos does not merely tolerate Zeus, it depends on him. Oaths sworn by gods and mortals invoke his name. Kings rule by his favor. Justice appeals to his authority. Even rebellion defines itself against him. Remove Zeus, and there is no immediate successor. No god embodies enough domains to replace him. No structure exists independent of his oversight. This was deliberate. Zeus did not just take the throne. He redesigned the throne so that it could only support him. 8. Why Zeus remains when others fall. Others were stronger. Others were older. Others were more fundamental. But they did not remain. They were too singular, too absolute, too distant from the systems that sustain power. Zeus adapted. He compromised. He absorbed contradiction. He allowed flaws. He stayed. In the end, Zeus's absolute power is not measured in thunderbolts or victories. It is measured in duration. In a universe defined by cycles of overthrow, Zeus broke the cycle by understanding it. He is not the strongest god in every sense. He is not the wisest. He is not the most just. He is the god who understood that power is not about winning once, but about never needing to fight again. Conclusion: the sovereignty of the survivor. Zeus stands alone not because all others failed, but because he built a world in which only he could stand. His power is absolute not because it cannot be challenged, but because every challenge strengthens the system that sustains him. Rivals become myths. Threats become foundations. Chaos becomes order. Zeus is not merely the king of the gods. He is the consequence of everything that came before him. And as long as the sky endures, as long as law restrains chaos, as long as memory favors order over oblivion, Zeus remains. Chapter 3. The Gods Who Doubted. Internal rebellion on Olympus. Rebellion against Zeus did not always come from monsters or ancient beings. The most dangerous opposition emerged from within Olympus itself. These were not enemies driven by brute force or raw ambition, but gods who believed they understood justice better than the king of gods. Doubt, among immortals, is a far subtler threat than violence. Gods who questioned Zeus rarely challenged his strength. They challenged his judgment. They whispered of excess, cruelty, imbalance. They spoke of mercy, reform, shared authority. In doing so, they revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of Zeus' rule. Olympus was not a council, it was a hierarchy. Zeus tolerated dissent, but he never allowed it to organize. The illusion of debate. In mythological and fictional expansions, Olympus often appears as a place of discussion and argument. Gods quarrel, criticize, and protest. This creates the illusion that Zeus' authority is flexible. It is not. Zeus permits debate because debate creates the appearance of freedom. But discussion without consequence is not power, it is containment. By allowing gods to speak, Zeus identifies who questions him, who hesitates, and who might one day act. Those who crossed from doubt into defiance were never punished immediately. Zeus understood that open retaliation would fracture Olympus and create martyrs. Instead, he dismantled opposition invisibly. Punishment without spectacle. Internal rebels were not struck down by lightning. They were diminished. Zeus stripped them of influence, redirected worship away from them, altered fate so their voices lost relevance. In a divine system sustained by belief, obscurity is annihilation. Gods exist because they are remembered. To be ignored is to decay. In darker interpretations, Zeus manipulates time and narrative itself. The rebellious gods' myths fade. Their temples crumble. Their names are no longer invoked. They remain alive, but hollow, powerless, spectators to a world that no longer acknowledges them. This form of punishment is surgical. It leaves no visible scars. Olympus remains peaceful, but the lesson is unmistakable. Unity is preserved not through loyalty, but through silence. Why Olympus never falls. Olympus does not collapse because Zeus understands internal rebellion better than any tyrant. He does not crush it violently. He dissolves it. By the time other gods realize dissent existed, it has already been erased. Chapter 4. Mortals, Hubris, and the Theatrical Punishment. If gods challenged Zeus intellectually, mortals challenged him unknowingly. Their rebellion was rarely intentional. It emerged from ambition, pride, ingenuity, or desperation, the traits Zeus himself once embodied. And that made mortals uniquely dangerous. Mortals believed achievement equaled permission, that progress justified transcendence. They mistook divine tolerance for divine approval. Zeus corrected this misunderstanding with spectacle. Hubris as a crime. In Zeus cosmology, hubris is not arrogance, it is miscalculation. Mortals who reached too high violated the invisible boundary between potential and permission. Zeus did not punish them for ambition. He punished them for forgetting their place. These punishments were never subtle. Endless labor, eternal hunger, transformation into beasts or objects. These fates were designed to be remembered, retold, and feared. Zeus understood that mortals learned through story, not doctrine. Each punishment became a myth. Each myth became a warning. The rise before the fall. In darker fictional interpretations, Zeus often allows mortals to succeed before destroying them. He grants intelligence, power, or divine gifts, only to revoke them at the peak of triumph. This deliberate rise and fall is not cruelty. It is demonstration. By allowing mortals to touch greatness before annihilation, Zeus reinforces a single truth. All achievement exists at his discretion. Destiny is not earned, it is permitted. Mortals as instruments. Mortals also serve another purpose. Their punishments echo longer than divine conflicts. Gods remember. Mortals repeat. Through mortal suffering, Zeus broadcasts his authority across generations. Each tragedy becomes cultural memory. Each story reinforces obedience long after the original crime is forgotten. In this way, mortals are not merely punished, they are utilized. The final truth of rebellion. By the end of every rebellion, Titan, God, or mortal, the outcome is identical. Zeus remains. The cosmos continues. Order is reinforced. Rebellion does not weaken Zeus' rule. It validates it. Each challenger, believing themselves unique, unknowingly steps into a role already written. Their defiance becomes another chapter in the myth of inevitability. Zeus does not fear rebellion because rebellion cannot escape his system. And so the universe learns, again and again, that resistance does not rewrite destiny. It confirms it. Part 3. The Judge of Fate. Zeus and the Architecture of Absolute Order. Chapter 1. Zeus as the Supreme Judge of Fate. At the highest point of Olympus, beyond storm and sky, Zeus does not sit merely as a king. He presides as a judge whose authority surpasses strength, lineage, and even divinity. His throne is not secured by fear alone, but by the universal acceptance that his judgments define reality itself. In Greek cosmology, fate is often misunderstood as an independent force, an unalterable script written by the Moirai. Yet fate, in its purest form, is possibility. It outlines what may occur, not what must. Zeus exists above this threshold. He does not weave fate, he authorizes it. This distinction is crucial. The Moirai spin threads, measure lengths, and cut lives short, but they do so within a framework Zeus permits. Their power is procedural. Zeus' power is constitutional. Without his sanction, fate has no jurisdiction. Judgment as cosmic function. Zeus' role as judge is not symbolic. It is structural. He does not intervene in every event, nor does he micromanage existence. Instead, he defines the conditions under which events may unfold. When those conditions are violated, judgment becomes inevitable. In darker mythological interpretations, Zeus' judgments resemble laws of physics rather than moral decrees. They do not express anger, they express correction. When balance is disrupted, Zeus restores it by removing the disruptive element, whether that element is Titan, God, or mortal. This is why his punishments feel absolute. They are not reactions, they are resolutions. The authority to decide endings. Every being in the cosmos may begin a story. Only Zeus decides when it ends. This authority is more terrifying than death itself. To die is natural. To be judged by Zeus is final. His verdicts do not allow reinterpretation, redemption, or appeal. Once a judgment is passed, it becomes permanent architecture within the universe. In fictional expansions, Zeus is portrayed as knowing the future outcomes of every path, yet refusing to intervene until judgment becomes unavoidable. This restraint reinforces the illusion of freedom while preserving the inevitability of order. Thus, Zeus is not a tyrant who denies choice. He is a ruler who denies escape. Chapter 2. Law, Free Will, and the Illusion of Autonomy. Perhaps the most complex aspect of Zeus' dominion is his relationship with free will. Gods and mortals alike believe they act freely. They choose alliances, defiance, ambition, and rebellion. Zeus does not prevent these choices. In fact, he depends on them. Freedom, under Zeus, is permitted precisely because it validates judgment. The controlled space of choice. Zeus' universe is not a prison. It is a controlled environment. Within it, beings may act as they wish, so long as their actions do not threaten the foundational order. When they do, freedom ceases to exist. This creates a paradox. Free will is real, but its consequences are predetermined. Those who rebel believe they are exercising autonomy. In reality, they are confirming the limits of autonomy. Their failure proves the system works. Zeus does not interfere to stop rebellion because rebellion is necessary. It defines the boundary between permission and violation. Without transgression, judgment has no meaning. Law above morality. Zeus' law is often mistaken for morality. It is not. Morality seeks fairness. Law seeks stability. Zeus does not judge based on compassion or cruelty, but on alignment. A being may be kind and still be condemned. Another may be violent and remain untouched. What matters is whether their existence supports or threatens the structure of order. In this sense, Zeus is not good or evil. He is indispensable. Why mercy is rare. Mercy introduces unpredictability. Unpredictability invites chaos. Zeus understands that mercy, when applied inconsistently, weakens authority. Thus, when mercy appears in myth, it is calculated, symbolic, and limited. It reinforces Zeus' discretion rather than undermining it. In darker interpretations, mercy itself becomes a tool of domination, granted not to relieve suffering, but to deepen dependence. Chapter 3. Eternal Order, the silence after thunder. When Zeus has judged, the universe does not celebrate. It does not mourn. It becomes silent. This silence is not peace. It is submission. It is the moment after thunder fades, when all beings understand that resistance has ended and order has been restored. In this stillness lies the true nature of Zeus' dominion, not chaos, not terror, but inevitability. Order that outlives conflict. Wars end. Revolutions fade. Empires collapse. Yet Zeus' order endures. Unlike mortal regimes, Zeus' authority is not bound to time, culture, or belief. It is woven into the structure of existence itself. When Titans fell, the universe did not fracture, it stabilized. When rebellious gods were erased from memory, Olympus did not weaken, it clarified its hierarchy. When mortals were punished for hubris, humanity did not cease, it learned its boundaries. Zeus does not seek constant obedience. He seeks alignment. As long as the cosmos moves within the limits he has defined, he remains unseen, unchallenged, almost distant. His presence is felt most strongly not during storms, but during calm, when nothing dares to rise. The aftermath as proof of power. True power is revealed not in conflict, but in what remains after conflict ends. Every rebellion against Zeus leaves behind the same aftermath: silence, continuity, and order. There is no vacuum of authority, no lingering instability. The system absorbs resistance and emerges unchanged. This is the ultimate failure of rebellion. It does not scar Zeus' rule. It reinforces it. In darker mythological interpretations, Zeus is portrayed as deliberately allowing chaos to surface briefly so that its resolution can reaffirm his necessity. Disorder becomes a controlled demonstration, not a genuine threat. Memory as architecture. Zeus builds his empire not with walls, but with memory. The stories of punishment, transformation, and eternal suffering endure long after the individuals themselves fade. These myths do not glorify the fallen, they diminish them. They reduce once powerful figures into cautionary symbols. Through memory, Zeus governs the future. Each retelling renews obedience. Each myth reinforces the invisible boundaries of existence. The throne beyond time. Zeus' throne does not age. It does not erode. It does not need defense. While gods are born, evolve, and fade, Zeus remains constant. He is not the strongest god because he fights the hardest, but because the universe has no alternative to him. His removal would not create freedom, it would create collapse. In philosophical interpretations, Zeus becomes less a character and more a principle, the final limit against which all possibility is measured. The final silence. After thunder, there is no argument. Those who survive Zeus' judgment do not speak of justice or injustice. They speak of reality. They accept that the universe has rules, and that those rules are enforced without emotion. This acceptance is the final stage of Zeus' rule. Not fear, not worship, but understanding. Conclusion: the unchallenged horizon. At the edge of all stories, Zeus remains. He does not chase rebellion. He does not seek love. He does not demand devotion. He simply exists, unchallenged, unquestioned, unavoidable. And so long as the sky still answers to thunder, one truth remains eternal. Zeus does not merely rule the cosmos. He defines the limits beyond which existence cannot go. Conclusion: the unbreakable dominion of Zeus. In the end, all stories within the cosmos return to the same truth: Zeus remains. Titans may rise and fall, gods may question and resist, and mortals may dream beyond their limits. But none can escape the structure Zeus has imposed upon existence. His power is not sustained by constant violence, but by inevitability. He does not need to prove himself again, because every failed rebellion has already done so in his place. Zeus rules not as a fleeting conqueror, but as the enduring axis of order. His judgments, whether delivered through thunder, curse, or silence, reshape destiny itself. They leave no room for appeal, only acceptance. Even fate, woven by the hands of the Moirai, operates within boundaries he allows.